What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris, a sport where head coaches don't get arrested for being part of a poker mafia ring. That being said, we do have Bobby Boom. I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but he did ship the $12 single entry. The reason I'm saying that he's not even a Stochastic member is he got so messed up after winning the $1,000 he cannot find his pupils. So if anyone has any information on his pinned pupils, please let me know and I can pass it along. But yesterday was a slate. I'll let Cliffy talk about it because it's pretty funny, but his message to me this morning, he's like, yeah, I put in the dummy lineup and it finished 5th in the Daily Dollar or something.
Yeah. I wasn't around last night, so I was like, I'll just put in a dummy lineup in the dollar to keep the Iron Man going, and finished 5th out of 1,200 contestants in the Daily Dollar. Pretty funny, but there were some big games last night. Jakob Dobish had a big game for Montreal in net. Jack Quinn certainly had a big game for Buffalo. Full stacks necessarily didn't do a whole lot. I noticed if you look at the top of some of the leaderboards last night, it was like people that had like 4 or 5 like Sabres players and then just jammed in some value or whatever around them. That's just kind of the way that goes, that especially on short slates. Also, like goal scoring is down this year. I wrote about that this morning where I read about season-long fantasy hockey. Goal scoring is down. It's like 0.14 goals per team per game per 60 minutes, or per team per 60 minutes compared to last year. So over a quarter goal per 60 minutes in each game. It's somewhat significant. It's why you're seeing a lot of like 4-1, 3-1, those types of games. Like last year, it felt like we were regularly, at least like once or twice a week, you're getting like an 8-6 or something like that. And that hasn't been the case so far this year. So less goal scoring. That is meaningful, but we're not here to talk about trends just yet. We're here to talk about this 12-game slate here tonight. Do want to mention one thing. The early game locks at 6:45 Eastern here tonight. It's the Tampa Bay Chicago game. They're starting 15 minutes earlier than the early games. So if you're somebody that's usually late to your computer or to your phone to double check who's in or who's out, just keep in mind that the slate locks a little bit earlier than usual here tonight.
Yeah, goal scoring is down unless the Sharks are playing. They are also on this slate. Slate lock 6:45, and everyone talks about, because Buffalo played well last night, everyone talks about JJ Peterka going to Utah, but Josh Doan, player, he's going to fit in well.
Yeah, that guy's a dude. For sure. Just waiting for Michael Kesselring to get back, and I think the Sabres are going to look a lot better.
Yeah, but we should get into this slate because now we have 12 games to break down instead of 11. DraftKings always talks about family time, and then they rip it from our grasp. But let's get into this slate. Chicago, why did they add this game? Chicago Blackhawks, they 2.3 total. Heading into Tampa Bay, the Lightning have a 3.7. Tampa going Point, Gensel, Goncalves, Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli, Bjorkstrand, Gord, Holmberg. Chicago going Bedard, Bertuzzi, Burakovsky, Nazar, Teravainen, Mikheyev, Donato, Doc, Ryan Green. So we've seen this at times.
Just quickly, I'm pretty sure that Lucas Reichel's on the top line. At least,
with Bertuzzi and Bedard,
yeah, he was there this morning and yesterday. I think Burakovsky, his wife's giving birth or something like that. So right. I don't think he's there. Maybe he gets there for game time. I don't know, but for now, it's Lucas Reichel on the top line.
Jake make me look bad. Classic Jake Hari move. I'm just kidding, but that's what we have in the top stacks. And like Ron Burgundy with a teleprompter, I will read anything in front of me. But we've seen this from time to time with John Cooper last year. He'll load Kucherov, Hagel, and Cirelli together. He does it because anytime he puts Kucherov, Point, and Gensel together, they get absolutely run over defensively. So he tries to break them up, and then eventually comes back, and then it's a back and forth. But at 18,500, 16% top two, 14.8% projected ownership. It is the highest total on the slate. I do really like Hagel, Cirelli, Kucherov here. Now, you only get Kucherov on the top power play, which is kind of a bummer. And it's a 12-game slate now, and I don't really want to load in like a Point Gensel Kucherov power play stack because I don't do that even when they're together. You know what I mean? So, like, I think I'm fine with just doing Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli. Hagel and Cirelli have elite numbers together. Even with guys that aren't Kucherov, when Kucherov's there, their offensive numbers are just as good. Their defensive numbers do slide a little bit, but this isn't a matchup where you really have to worry about that. So I'm in on Tampa 1 here. I think the Kucherov line. I think Point Gensel Goncalves makes some sense because you do get exposure to 2 guys on the top power play unit for under 17K. The issue is you're kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face if you want power play exposure without Kucherov, right? So, like, I guess in MME, if you wanted to do like a super expensive Tampa power play stack, that's fine. I prefer the Kucherov line. You can go to Point Gensel Goncalves if you need the savings, but Kucherov line for me. On the Chicago side, I don't have a ton of interest. Also, just real quick, Gord Bjorkstrand, not advocating to run out and play them, but Bjorkstrand is on the top power play unit. You could add him in instead of Goncalves to get a full Tampa 1 power play stack there for similar price. It would be like 17-4. But still, if you're doing anything with the power play, you want to get Kucherov in. Don't mind a 2-man from Tampa 3 if you have a really expensive power play stack elsewhere, but Kucherov fine. On the Chicago side, don't have a ton of interest here. If you end up getting like a one-off Bedard, a 2-man with Bertuzzi, fine, but this is a pretty tough matchup.
On the Chicago side, like Lucas Reichel on the top line, it's kind of interesting because he's a guy, like, he plays fast. He plays off the rush a lot, right? And you need certain types of players to make that work. Like, and I don't think playing on the fourth line with like Landon Slaggert is exactly like the best spot to do that. Reichel's picked up a few goals so far this year. So, like, he's definitely producing, shooting 33%. What I will say is that I imagine they're going to go out against Hagel and Cirelli, and that's just a matchup that I just want to avoid. And, like, Tampa's penalty kill has generally been fine on top of that. So far this season, the Lightning are 6th by expected goals against on the penalty kill, 4th by goals against. Like, it's not a good power play matchup for Chicago. So, out on the top line for the Blackhawks, the second line is where it gets interesting for me, because once you get past Hagel and Cirelli, like, Tampa Bay has just not really been good defensively this year. So far, now, again, they've only played 6 games. Today's game 7, but 20th by expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5, 27th by shot attempts against per 60. There is a reason why they've been giving up some goals, and it's not the penalty kill. It's that they have not been good defensively at 5-on-5. Now, this is a 12-game slate. I don't think you necessarily have to run out to play, a 15K Chicago second line in a bad penalty kill matchup. But if you wanted to one-off someone, from that Chicago second line, Mikheyev 4,600, I think does make some sense. If you want to pay up for Nazar, I guess like that's okay. But for me, it'd probably be Mikheyev just because he does shoot, plays the penalty kill, so maybe he can get a chance against. I really don't care about the power play guys for Chicago here tonight. So if anything from the Blackhawks, it'd be something from the second line. But yeah, the interest is on the Tampa side. Like, it really sucks that Tampa's doing this with their lines. Like, Chicago is giving up the most power play opportunities per game of any team in the NHL so far this season. Like, and even if you take away that one game where they gave up like 10 power plays to Montreal or whatever, they're still at like 4 power play opportunities given up per game. Like, that's just how much they're just sending their guys to the penalty box. And the penalty kill has been good, but with a caveat. The caveat being they've given up the second most expected goals against on the PK, but they're right around top 10 for fewest goals against. So the Spencer Knight has been the difference for Chicago. Like whether penalty kill, even strength doesn't matter. He's been the difference. If Spencer Knight plays like he typically has been, it's a bad spot for Tampa Bay. But if you give this Tampa Bay lineup 4 or 5 power play opportunities, and we know what they can do. So I do prefer the Hagel, Cirelli, Kucherov line in general. I would have to figure out a way to get more power play exposure, like taking off, Cirelli and putting on Braden Point or something like that. Taking off Hagel and putting on Gensel. Like I would have to, or Bjorkstrand, obviously. I would have to figure out a way to get more power play exposure because the Chicago's just taking far too many penalties for me to load in a Tampa stack with one guy from the power play. You know what I mean? So no matter what I do with Tampa, it's figuring out a way to get Tampa guys in. But I will say I have no interest in playing the Point Gonsalves line. If you look at Tampa over the last few years, whenever Point's been playing without Kucherov, 53 shot attempts, 2.4 expected goals, 2.4 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Those are basically league average, if not worse than league average at 5-on-5 when Point's on the ice without Kucherov. So that's a no for me, dog. So it's Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli, but I would take out one of Hagel and Cirelli and definitely put in one of Point or Gensel or Bjorkstrand, just because I think you want power play exposure from the Lightning if you're playing them here tonight.
Yeah, and that adds like another wrinkle too, right? Because like if Knight is starting off strong and the Tampa power play starts 0 for 2 or something, you could see Hagel on the top unit.
Yeah, that's true too.
Which is quite a scene, but they're kind of hard to stack here tonight. I see Bobby Boom has made it to the chat, regained the ability to use his pupils. He's now in his Tesla going to get some ramen, I would assume. Boston. No, Anaheim. 2.9 total. The Ducks heading into Boston. The Bruins, they have a 3.1 total. Chris Kreider still out. He is sick. Anaheim going Gauthier, Carlson, Killorn, McTavish, Seneca, Vetrano, Terry, Granlund, Nesterenko. Boston going Pasternak, Lindholm, Geeky, Zaka, Arvidsson, Middlestat. So this is the battle of backups here. It is Peter Mrazek for Anaheim, and it is
Korpisalo.
Joonas Korpisalo. I was having Joonas Korpisalo for Boston. That does give me I guess you could say Dostal hasn't been great to start the season, but he's still been the better goalie. I do have a little bit of interest here in Boston 1. The problem is they're coming in with 17.6% projected ownership, 19.3% top 2. And the Ducks are still taking a fair share of penalties, but their penalty kill, at least through the first 6 games or whatever they played, has been a vast improvement to what it was from last year. And it's not like the Boston power play is some extremely dangerous unit. It's David Pasternak and 4 other guys. So at that ownership and that price, I'm probably going to take a pass and hope that, Mrazek can just, keep it a little bit locked down. I'm still fine with the Pasternak one-off. I don't think I'll full stack them at that ownership though. So if you want to, that's fine. So, that's really the only line I have interest in anyway. Ownership agnostic. I do really like Boston 1 here, but you throw in the ownership and it's just not something that I'm interested in on a 12-game slate. So on the Ducks side, I don't mind Carlson, Gauthier, Killorn at 13,700. It's priced basically as a filler line. Carlson's on the top unit. You get the other 2 guys on the second unit. Carlson and Gauthier, I think they played a bunch together at the end of last season and looked very good. Killorn, he's there. he's not going to hurt you. Like, I don't think he's out of place there. There could be better options, but he's not going to kill you there. So I think that's the line I would go to at 13,700. If you want to go to McTavish, Seneca, and Vetrano at 14.5, that's fine. But I prefer Carlson, Gauthier, Killorn. 2-man of Granlund, Terry for power play is fine. They're only 10,800 with Nikita Nesterenko there. I would assume he's min price, yeah. But as a full stack, it would be Gauthier, Carlson, Killorn.
We just went over this on Tuesday when Anaheim was at Nashville. And the point that I made on the show on Tuesday was, how sure are we that Nashville is better than Anaheim? Anaheim goes in and just runs them over and wins 5-2. Ross Johnston, career game, 3 points, 3 points in 9 minutes of ice time. It's just incredible. I'm going to say the same thing again here today. How sure are we that Boston is a better team than Anaheim?
They're not.
You know what I mean? Like the Ducks have had a fairly soft schedule to start the season, but by and large, they're outplaying all the bad teams. Now, they've lost a couple games, sure. They're still a young team. There's still some holes in the lineup. They still have to get better. Are we sure that this is a worse team than the Boston Bruins? I'm not. I think Anaheim is the better team. So I get that the scoring is all concentrated on the top unit for Boston, on the top line for Boston. So that's part of it. David Pastrnak has the highest projection of any player on the slate. That's also part of it. But do I want to play a chalk line from the inferior team? And it's not really. So, Pastrnak one-off always makes sense, basically in just about any kind of matchup. And when you look at a guy with the highest projection on the board, and it's there's 12 games on the slate here tonight, and he's projected for 10% more DK points than the next closest player. So he's clearly a top option here tonight. Is his line a top option? I mean, maybe they smash, maybe they do. You mentioned the Anaheim penalty kill. It has been better. They're also taking fewer penalties. The second fewest power play opportunities given to the opposition per game so far this season. The only team giving up fewer is the Rangers. So if Boston only gets a couple power play opportunities, has to play this whole game at 5-on-5. I don't know, man. I think for me, it's an easy pass on Boston. It's David Pastrnak could, carry the top line to 3 goals here tonight. He can do that in just basically any game. Do I want to do that at, 15 to 20% ownership on a 12-game slate? Probably not. So for me, this game is about the Anaheim side. It really sucks that Kreider's out, because I do think he's not necessarily an important part of the top line at even strength, but I think he's the most important player on their top power play unit. And without him, it just, maybe they score. Anything can happen in a single game. But without him on the top power play unit, it kind of feels like it's just the same thing from last year when they were really bad. So, that's the one thing that's kind of holding me back from Carlson, Killorn, and Gauthier, and why I would kind of divert to McTavish, Seneca, and Vetrano at 14,500. Seneca and McTavish are on the second unit with Olin Zellweger. They are generating a ton of shots so far this year. I mean, with Gauthier there on the second line, they're at 4.7 expected goals per 60, above average goal scoring, despite shooting just 6.5% as a line. So, if they shoot 10%, they're filling the net. I think both Anaheim top 2 lines are my targets here in this game. It's just a matter of which one to go with. You're going with the Carlson line. I'm going with the McTavish line. I think they're both firmly in play here. I'd rather play them than a Boston line that's $5,000 more expensive with 5 to 6 times the ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I think the McTavish line is fine. I'm just taking the 800. You still get 2 guys on the second power play unit. Zellweger has been shooting a ton. So if they might, with Kreider out, might actually be the better unit. So Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.6 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 3.4. Florida going Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Marchand, Lundell, Luster-Reinen, Samoskevich, Rodriguez, Bachquist. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Mantha, and the GOAT, Justin Brazeau. He is showing no signs of slowing down. Remember when we trashed him on opening day?
Mm.
We're still eating that. Doesn't taste great. But, I mean, weirdly enough, like, they actually are in a pretty decent matchup here tonight. Like, I know Marchand, Lundell, Luosterainen were excellent in the postseason. They've been off to a pretty rough start defensively this season. They've absolutely been bailed out by the Bob. I'm not saying run out and play Malkin, Mantha, Brazeau at 12-8, but there's no ownership there. And if you're MMEing, you can throw them into your mix of filler lines that you can play with the other expensive lines, and I think that's fine. Crosby, Rust, Raquel in a matchup with Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Bennett, it's the opposite, right? That line has actually been decent defensively, and like Bob's goaltending with them on the ice hasn't been great for whatever reason. Like, I don't mind Pittsburgh one here. They're certainly not a priority at 18-4. They're coming in with like a fifth of the ownership of Boston. Obviously, Boston's in a better spot, but I don't mind Pitt 1 in MME. Don't mind Pitt 2 in MME, but this is a Florida game. And I think, if you want to go to that top line, that's kind of where I prefer to go. Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Bennett at 17,400. 11.2% top two stack, 13.1% projected ownership. The ownership isn't great on a 12-gamer, but if you look in the top stacks of lines in the 16 to 18K range, they're the only one above a 10% top two stack. You have the Sharks below them, Tampa point line, which don't have a ton of interest, the Ottawa Stützle line, which we'll talk about, you know what I mean? So they do have one of the higher top two stack percentages on the slate. I just still think they're kind of trying to figure out who they are as a line because, Verhaeghe and Bennett have played some together. Bennett and Reinhart have played some together, but they don't have a huge sample of playing all together. This is a good matchup, though, because Pittsburgh at the best of times plays pond hockey. So at that price, I am interested in Florida 1, Florida 2, and Florida 3, more of MME type deal. So the only line I'm interested in any format is Florida 1, but there are a bunch of filler lines you can use in MME.
Yeah. Starting on Pittsburgh, like I'm just out on Pitt 1. Even without Barkov going up against that Ekblad-Forsling pairing, it's just a hard pass for me. And they haven't looked good since Russ came back. I think they had a decent game the last time out, but they haven't smashed, and the underlying numbers are not good. For Pitt 1, 56 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals, 3.4 against. So out on Pitt 1. Pitt 2 would definitely be more my speed, just because, one, like the Pittsburgh power play, again, with Russ back, has not been that good. Pittsburgh's not drawing very many power play opportunities. They're at 2.7 per game. It's a bottom 10 mark in the league. So not a ton of power play opportunities. Hasn't looked good since Russ came back. At 5-on-5, they're in a brutal matchup. So out on them. Pitt 2 is where I would go. Like they're, still at 60 shot attempts, 4.6 expected goals per 60. Justin Brazeau has one of the highest individual expected goal rates in the league, and both Malkin and Mantha are between 1.3 and 1.5 individual expected goals per 60 themselves. So, like, even those two who haven't been the huge goal scorers, Malkin's put up a lot of assists. Even they're generating some pretty quality looks. So, they're going to avoid Forsling and Ekblad for the most part. That's kind of where my interest is in Pitt 2, but like, they're in roughly the same range as the Anaheim lines we just talked about, and I'd rather play Anaheim. So it's not like Pitt 2 would be more of a 20 max MME. On the Florida side, like, I don't know, like, they're still messing around with the power play. That's one thing that kind of worries me is like power play, like, really hasn't come together yet. I think they scored once against the Bruins with their 4-forward setup, which, like, that power play comes around with the current setup, then great. But Reinhart is the only guy on the top line that's on the top power play unit. So, like, 17,400, like, I get that's probably where I would go. I would prefer them over Marchand, Lundell, and Luosterainen, just because they're going to go up against, like you said, that Crosby line that is really trading chances even more so than last year, and to a negative degree, quite a bit. So it would be Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Bennett, but probably one of those cases where, like with Tampa Bay, I take out Verhaeghe and I put in Brad Marchand or I put in Anton Lundell or something like that instead, just to get more power play exposure. Florida is drawing 4.3 power play opportunities per game. It's the most in the league. So while the power play itself hasn't been great, maybe they'll turn it around now that they have the 4 forward set up. It's a good matchup at 5-on-5. So yeah, it's Florida 1. I agree. I would probably take out one of Verhaeghe or Bennett for one of Marchand or Lundell to get some more power play exposure. Pitt 2, I think, is fine as a filler, but like I said, I prefer either of the top 2 Anaheim lines, so it's more MME for me.
Yeah, and just going back to when I said Jake make me look bad, he sent us a message saying that he was running stuff, and it's updated. I just didn't refresh it, so eating crow once again. But thank you, Jake. Detroit Red Wings, 2.8 total, heading into Long Island. Awful space of life. The Islanders have a 3.2 total. Islanders going Horvat, Drouin, Heineman, Barzal, Palmieri, Duclair, Lee, Pajot, Holmstrom. Detroit played last night and lost to the Sabres. I don't think they didn't really mess with their lines. They did move Michael Brandseg Nygaard to the second line, right?
Yeah.
With Casper and DeBrincat. And then, yeah. I wish Sorokin was starting, so I wouldn't even have to consider even thinking about Detroit here tonight. But they do have a 2.8 road total. It is back-to-back on the road, which not ideal. I just don't like these lines, but it is Big Save Dave and net for the Islanders. Like a 2-man of Larkin Raymond is fine. I'm not running out to play Detroit here by any stretch. They won't make it into my single entry lineup, but the Islanders don't have a good penalty kill at all. Their penalty kill is probably bottom 3 dating back like 3 years. Probably longer, but Detroit is fairly power play. They get a lot of their offense through their power play, so I don't mind going like Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, something like that. But I would reserve that for at least 20 max, probably even more. Definitely in like 20 max, I'd have like one Detroit power play stack and go about my day. In single entry, I don't have a ton of interest in Detroit here. On the Islander side, I see the Barzal, Palmieri, Duclair line coming in at 7.5% projected. That's honestly not bad considering that they avoid top comp. And once you get past, that Sider pairing, they've been fine, honestly. But like going up against like the JT Confer, Van Riemsdyk, Bergen line, like Barzal can win that. I also don't mind Horvat, Drouin, Heineman. They have a 3.2 home total. Detroit's penalty kill is also atrocious. And since Matt Schaefer went onto the top power play unit, they've been generating a ton. I think he leads defensemen in the NHL in points right now, which is kind of insane. But yeah, I don't mind Horvat, Drouin. You can leave off Heineman and add in Barzal, make it a power play stack. So I think like power play stacking on both sides is where I would go. I lean to the Islanders. They have a bigger total. They're at home and they're facing a team back-to-back on the road.
Yeah. I don't mind the Islanders here. Matthew Schaefer certainly has made a difference for them. Here's the thing is like Detroit's penalty kill is, at least so far this season, has been a lot better than last year. They're tied for the fifth fewest power play opportunities given up per game this season. And then if you look at the underlying numbers, like 4th fewest shots against per minute on the PK this season, they're top 10 for fewest goals against per minute on the PK. So not only they're not giving up a ton of opportunities, but when they actually do have to kill penalties, they're doing a pretty good job of it. That worries me a little bit because Detroit has been, as you mentioned, like their defensemen. Like I just talked about it this morning, the Jacob Bernard Docker, Albert Johansson third pair has been like a revelation. Now they've only played like 65 or 70 minutes together or something like that. So, let's see where that goes. But, the big thing with this Detroit team for years was A, bad penalty kill, and B, depth lines could, just bomb away against the depth from Detroit. That's not been the case so far this year. And listen, man, I like Anthony Duclair a lot as a player. He is a drag on that second line. Anthony Duclair so far this season is at 0.5 expected goals individually per 60 minutes. Like, that's just horrific shot quality, especially when you're playing with Matt Barzal. And again, like we mentioned on the last show, they have Lee down on the third line because they need him there to make that third line actually good. But what they're sacrificing is a good second line by doing it. So for me, it's Horvat, Drouin, and Heineman. That line has actually been pretty good this year. 62 shot attempts, 3 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60. Bo Horvat is over 20 shot attempts and 2.0 expected goals per 60 minutes by himself. Jonathan Drouin obviously on the top power play with him. So if the power play does get on the board, you have a couple of guys there. Emil Heineman has been fine for them. He's mixed well on that top line. So it's probably the Horvat, Drouin, Heineman line that I like best in this game. You know, if you want to play the Detroit side, like the Islanders do have a bad PK, second most shots against, most expected goals against per 60 on the penalty kill so far this season. It's the goaltending that has saved them. You can't rely on your goaltenders to save 90% of shots on the penalty kill every game. It's just asking way too much of them. You know, it would be the Larkin, Raymond, Finney top line that I would go with. They're at 4.6 goals per 60 so far this season, shooting over 21%. That's the problem. Is that at 5-on-5, their shooting percentage is going to get cut in half between now and the end of the season. And because they're not generating anything shots-wise. 47 shot attempts per 60 minutes. So, like, I guess if you want to power play stack something from Detroit, that's the way I would go, because if they do go ham here tonight, it's going to be because of the power play. And it's because, you know, DeBrincat hasn't scored this year. DeBrincat gets going, Dylan Larkin fills the net on the power play, something like that. It would be some sort of Detroit power play stack, just because the Islanders penalty kill once again is so bad that you can't ignore the Red Wings. But for me, this game is more about the Islanders and it's more about the Horvat line.
San Jose Sharks, 2.3 total. Heading into Madison Square Garden, the Rangers have a 3.7. Rangers going Panarin, Zibanejad, Cooley, Miller, Lafreniere, Sheary, Laba, Parssinen, Radish. Not even sure why I mentioned that, other than that they are min price and facing the bottom 6 of the Sharks. Sharks going Celebrini, Toffoli, Smith, Eklund, Skinner, Wenberg, Misa, Gaudette, Groff. A lot of ownership on the Rangers here. They are, they're tied with Tampa for the highest total on the slate, 3.7. The top line is Zibanejad, Panarin, Cooley, 19,100, 18.6% top 2 stack, 17% projected ownership. Miller, Lafreniere, Sheary, 14,500, 5.3% top 2 stack, and 15.1% projected ownership. The problem that I have outside of, the ownership facing the Sharks is the Zibanejad, Panarin, Cooley line hasn't been good at 5-on-5. The Miller, Lafreniere, Sheary line has been generating a ton, but it couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. I think I would just
know who else hasn't been good at 5-on-5?
The Sharks.
Their entire roster.
Yeah, they're the worst.
Actually, shouldn't say their entire roster. Sam Dickinson has been playing very well. He's getting healthy scratches. Yeah.
Maintenance. Workload management, they said. Okay, Joel Embiid. But I think what I would just do with the Rangers is just straight up power play stack. All 5 if you wanted to. You could go Zibanejad, Panarin, Miller, Lafreniere, Zibanejad. I think the 2 I would make sure to get in are Zibanejad and Miller. You can say whatever you want about Mika Zibanejad at 5-on-5, but he still has that nice little slap shot going for him, and the Sharks penalty kill sucks. So it would be some sort of power play stack for the Rangers. Don't really have interest in these 5-on-5 lines, but I get it if you want to do it. On the Sharks side, it would be Celebrini, Toffoli, Smith. The Rangers have actually been fine defensively. Igor has been great. their issue is they can't score. So like that has nothing to do with Celebrini, Toffoli, Smith. But it's 16,400 right on their top two stack with their ownership at 7.5%. I would take a stab in MME in single entry on a 12-game slate. I don't really want to stack against Igor Shesterkin.
Yeah, I mean, I think San Jose plays tomorrow as well. So
front end of a back-to-back.
Yeah, they want to give Sam Dickinson the night off. Here's the thing: he's been their best defenseman. I know he's only playing 15, 16 minutes a game, but they're winning his minutes, which you can't really say about the rest of the San Jose blue line. That's why it's hard to get to the Sharks here tonight. I mean, like you said, the Rangers have been good defensively. Shesterkin's been great. Really not a spot that I want to just launch right into San Jose. So like, I think the San Jose top line does make some sense. Just because they are perfectly correlated at 16,400, 7.4% top two stack. Like, it's a top 10 mark on the slate here tonight. I just think with Dickinson out, like they don't have anybody on the blue line that can create a positive shot differential. Let's put it that way. So I'm basically out on San Jose. The question is what to do with the Rangers. I like your idea of a power play stack. I would probably add in Will Cooley and just make it a 6-man Josh stack. Like, honestly, I think this is a spot for a Josh stack. Like, I know that, we can make all the jokes we want about the Rangers not scoring, but they have been generating extremely well, especially that Miller line. Miller and Lafreniere, 3.2 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5 together this season. That's why I would put the two of them in with the Rangers top line, throw Adam Fox on the blue line, and then away you go. It is a huge total. It's Alex Nedeljkovic net, which, like, I mean, I'm not sure it wholly matters, but, you have who I think is the worst goalie behind what is one of the worst blue lines you'll ever see in the NHL. And I think that just makes for a pretty good matchup for the Rangers, both at 5-on-5 and on the power play. So, if anything, if you're going to even strength stack, I think Miller, Lafreniere, Sheary is where I would go. I know they have a lot of ownership, but they've generally been they've been creating pretty well. But I think this is a spot for a power play stack. And if you're going to play the Rangers, you're going to want to get in 4, 5, 6 skaters. So that's where I would go. I mean, I do worry about ice time. It's like, what if the Rangers get out to like a 3-0 lead, early, like, Gavrikov gets a goal, you get one from Zibanejad, one from Connor Sheary or something like that. Then all of a sudden the top line plays like 15 minutes. Meanwhile, like, Adam Edstrom plays 16 minutes or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I do worry about, but it is such a good matchup. It's really hard to ignore the Rangers. So I think if you're going to play them here tonight, you don't just even strength stack one of their 3-man lines. You power play stack, you Josh stack, you do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that fourth line is going to play a ton, especially because, like, the Rangers have had trouble scoring. So if they're scoring, I think Sullivan's going to be like, keep scoring. Just to get they're going. And I see Gonsalves. I will note that down. I'm just, not great with pronunciations, if you couldn't tell. Philadelphia Flyers, they 2.7 total. Heading into Ottawa, the Senators have a 3.3. Ottawa going Stützle, Batherson, Cousins, Pinto, Giroux, Amadio, Grieg, Perron, Cousins. Flyers going Konechny, Tippett, Couturier, Michkov, Zegras, Dvorak, Forrester, Cates, Brink. I was looking at face-offs this season. Tim Stützle is winning almost 75% of his faceoffs, which he's number one in the NHL, which is like not massive for DFS, but it is important because the Flyers play at such a slow pace that if Stützle can win offensive zone faceoffs, that certainly will help. Also, they're going to miss the Cates matchup, which is nice. They're fully correlated. Dan Vodash, however he pronounces it, is in net. I don't mind Stützle, Batherson, Cousins at 16.5, 5.8% projected top two, 5.7% projected ownership. I'd rather play them than the Sharks here. I think Igor's a little bit better than Dan Vladar. I think the Rangers are a little bit better team than the Flyers. So I do like Ottawa here as a stack in that 16 to 18K range. You want to go to Pinto Giroux as a 2-man. I think that's fine. Like Shane Pinto's looked excellent to start this season. Giroux still is a good playmaker. So I do like Ottawa too as a filler. The Flyers side, it's like Ottawa's a decent team. Their goalies have been really bad to start this season. If you want to go to Konechny, Tippett, Couturier, 15-8, I think that's fine. But, like, again, like, I'm just going to go to Cates, Brink, and Forrester at 11K until they prove me wrong. And that's kind of what happened last year, too. And they finally, DraftKings was finally like, you know what, we'll make them 14,000. So you actually have to make a decision. But at 11K, it's not really a decision. So, like, on the Flyer side, it's Cates, Forrester, Brink. And I do like Ottawa one here.
Yeah. It's not like I'm a huge fan of the Philadelphia Flyers, and it's not like I'm a huge fan of stacking the Philadelphia Flyers power play, but we say it over and over. This is a bad Ottawa penalty kill. As it stands, they're dead last in the league by goals against per 60 on the PK. You know, they're better by some other measures, like basically middle of the league by expected goals against, shots against, like those types of things. But as you said, the goaltending has been bad. You know, it's not like I said, like I'm eager to stack the Flyers for their power play, but against a penalty kill that's been this bad, I think you do have to consider them. And, you know, Ottawa does take their fair share of penalties. They're at least like around league average in that respect. So like, you know, the Flyers should get their fair share of chances, and that top line's perfectly correlated. So you have a perfectly correlated top line under 16K. You know, Couturier, his offensive numbers are a lot better without Michkov so far this season. And I think that says a lot, both of what Couturier could still bring and how bad Michkov has been. So I don't, and you know, that Pinto shutdown line has been good. That is a worry at 5-on-5, but you know, it's not as if the Flyers are like 19K or something like that. They're under 16K. They get 2 goals. You're probably fine. And at 15,800, I do think they're a line that you absolutely have to consider. Until this Ottawa penalty kill shows signs of improvement, I think it's something that you can definitely pick on. So Philly won for me. On the Ottawa side, like, I don't mind the matchup, but top power play unit is under 6 expected goals per 60 so far this season. It's horrific. So then you're looking at generating all at 5-on-5. And as you said, the Flyers just grind games down to an absolute slog. And like, listen, it might help them win some games. I guess we'll find out by the end of the season, but third fewest shot attempts against per 60 at 5-on-5. Fewest expected. The Flyers are allowing the fewest expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 in the NHL. So then you're stacking for the power play. And like I said, this Ottawa power play has not been good to start the season. Now, I think the second unit has scored a couple goals. Maybe you want to grab some guys off the second unit, but I'm going to be honest. I'm out on the Sens here tonight. I'm in more on the Flyers, and it's Flyers one for me.
That's fair. I mean, this game, like going from Torts to Tippett is just brutal for pacing for the Flyers, but it is what it is. Vancouver Canucks with a 2.9 total. Heading into Nashville, the Preds have a 3 total. Excuse me. Preds going Forsberg, O'Reilly, Evangelista, Stamkos, Bunting, Holla. And a bunch of guys. Matthew Wood, not in the player pool, making his NHL debut on the third line, or season debut. I forget which. Doesn't matter. Vancouver going Pettersson, Garland, Baines.
No. It's Evander Kane.
Vander Kane, yes, sorry. Jake trying to kill me again. Classic Jake. Pettersson, Garland, Kane, DeBrusk, Sasson, Besser, Baines, Rotti, Sherwood. Listen, like chalk Nashville the other night was talk it, sorry. Nashville the other night was wild chalk, and that's a very, very easy fade. Here, they're coming in at 6% projected. That's still higher than their tops 2, but it's not 25%. And Vancouver whether it's sneakily or very wide open, they've been pretty bad at 5-on-5. Where they've been saved is Thatcher Demko. He's been elite. When he's healthy, he is one of the best goalies in the league. But I don't mind taking a stab at a fully correlated Nashville one line at 15,500 at 6%. When they're super chalk on a shorter slate, it's going to be a pass every time. But 6% on a 12-game slate at that price is fine. I don't love stacking against Demko, but fully correlated, sure, I'll take a stab in 20 max. The depth, like that second line, Haula, Bunting, Stamkos, you can throw into a basket for your MME if you need a filler. Don't particularly love them, but it would be silly to X out 11,700 line with Stamkos on it. On the Vancouver side, it's like I don't really like Vancouver. That Sasson line is 13,300 though. You get DeBrusk and Besser on the top power play unit. You can do whatever you want with Max there. He's 2,900. I think at a center position, it's fine. I'm not running out to play Vancouver here, but they do have a 2.9 total. I think you can add in Quinn Hughes on the blue line there and get like 3 guys on the power play. It's not something I'm super interested in 1 to 3, but if you're making 5, 10, 15, 20 lineups or more, I think that would be the route I would go until, I saw the other night of all the Vancouver centers, Elias Pettersson played the least at 5-on-5. So until he can break out, I'm going to avoid that line and go to Besser, DeBrusk, and Sasson.
Yeah, Vancouver's an easy pass for me. If I'm playing some lines in that 13 to 15K range, I'm going to the Ducks or the Islanders or something like that. This Vancouver team's they're not good. You mentioned their defense at 5-on-5. The Canucks bottom 5 by shot attempts and expected goals against per 60. So it's not just they're giving up they gave up a few flurries that's driving up their expected goals against. They're giving up a ton of shot attempts against. So, I do prefer the Nashville side here. Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, Luke Evangelista, 15,500. Certainly rather play them than anything on the Vancouver side. Without Brady Martin, the top line's at 2.6 expected goals per 60, which isn't great, but at least it's above league average. And that's something. Not sure what, but it's something. Philip Forsberg over 20 shot attempts per 60. Luke Evangelista approaching 18 shot attempts per 60. Those guys are shooting quite a bit. Still not sure this is actually a good team, but again, it's like the Flyers or whatever. It's not like this is a spot where they're priced at 18 or 19K at 15,500. It is extremely reasonable. They have a 3 total, and the only thing that's really been saving the Canucks so far this year, as you mentioned, is Thatcher Demko. And this line is perfectly correlated under 16K with a 3 total at home against a bad 5-on-5 defensive team. So I have way more interest in Nashville tonight than I did on Tuesday night. That's for sure. They're not right at the top of my priority list, but if I'm looking to play a couple mid-range lines here, I'd rather play Nashville than San Jose. Let's put it that way. So I kind of like Nashville 1. If you want to drop down to Nashville 2, no issue with that. I think Eric Haula sucks, so I'm not playing an Eric Haula line. For me, this game, it's really just Nashville 1 or bust for me.
Yep. We have a 199 super chat from Nino. Geeky, Lafreniere, or Kane. I think that's on FanDuel. They're pretty much the same price. I think Lafreniere is your guy there. On the top power play for the Rangers against the Sharks.
Yeah, I agree with that. At the least, it's not Kane. It's one of Geeky or Lafreniere. What I worry about with Geeky is they haven't been consistently leaving him on the top line. So if they get down a goal or two, maybe they kick him off. That's not going to happen with Lafreniere. So I agree with you. I think I would go with Laf here.
Yep. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, Nino. Utah, Mammoth, 2.7 total. Heading into St. Louis, the Blues have a 2.9. St. Louis going old school here tonight, going back to their lines from last year. Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Holloway, Neighbors, Shen, Suter, Snuggerud, Matty Joseph. Utah going Genther, Cooley, Peterka, Keller, Schmaltz, Hayton. Logan Malu. No. How do you pronounce it?
Mayu.
Yeah, like Caillou.
Yeah.
Caillou can get bent. Mayu can also get bent. He is arguably the worst defenseman in the league to start the season.
I mean, he was last year too.
Yeah. That's why he didn't play much for the Canadiens. But, man, I wish this was a better matchup because I would have interest in Thomas Kyrou Buchnevich at $17,400. Like, that price is really good for them. They have been elite together whenever they're together. The problem is, and I don't know how much hyperbole is coming out of my mouth here, but Utah is one of the best defensive teams in the league. Even without Sean Durzi, they've just been nasty. So, like, at 0.4%, the reason to play them would be ownership. If you get like 1 of 20, it's fine because they're fully correlated. They've been great together for seasons, but in single entry, unfortunately for me, I'm taking a pass because Utah has just been excellent. Holloway, Neighbors, Shen at 14.7, I'd be more likely to get to just because they're $2,700 cheaper. They were really good last year, but again, like, I'm not running out to play the Blues here tonight. You need a super cheap two-man. Suter, Snuggerud, I guess, is fine. But again, not super high on the Blues, unfortunately. Utah side's a little bit more interesting. You would suspect with Shen and Holloway, Neighbors back together, they'll probably go out against that Keller line, unless they treat the Cooley line as top comp. Either way, you'll see top 6 out against top 6. I think Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller would be my preferred just because they're cheaper at $16,200. I don't have a ton of interest. I don't know how much Mayu is going to play. Like, if you want to play McBain, Krause, because maybe they get time, fine. But like, this is an MME game for me.
Yeah, the thing with Utah we should mention is they do have great defensive numbers at 5-on-5. They played Colorado twice this season, and the other 5 games have been Nashville, Chicago, Calgary, San Jose, Boston. So, like, okay, there are the 2 Colorado games, and then there's 5 teams that could all, like, legitimately be in the lottery. So, like, I agree that defenses look good. I'm still not sure this is going to be a great defensive team. I think they'll be a fine defensive team. Like, they're not going to be like bottom 10 or anything like that. I'm not sure their numbers are going to be, after 40 games are going to be as good as they are right now. So Thomas Kyrou and Buchnevich is interesting to me. One, because they're not going to play a lot with Mayu, and I do think that's important. Like, they're going to go with the Parayko Fowler pairing and maybe even Justin Falk and play the shutdown minutes and all that. They are perfectly correlated on the power play. They're not drawing a lot of power play opportunities. That's the one thing that does kind of bother me. 2.7 power play opportunities per game. They're tied for the fourth fewest in the league in that respect. So, like, if they only get a couple power play opportunities at 17,400, I guess it's fine. But I agree with you. I think it's more MME. On the Utah side, like, I really do like Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayden. I do think the problem is that they're going to see a lot of that Thomas matchup with Parayko and Fowler on the blue line. Whereas I think Genther, Cooley, and Peterka stand a much better chance of seeing the second pair and seeing the third pair from St. Louis, and that's where they can get exploited. I can't overstate how bad Logan Mailloux is. He shouldn't be in the NHL. The only reason he is because they have to try to pretend that was a good trade for Zach Bolduc when it was a terrible one. He should be in the AHL getting some more experience, but that's what it is. And Utah is drawing a lot of power play opportunities, 3.9 per game so far this season. It's the 6th most in the league. You do get Genther and Keller on the top unit. That second line, 67 shot attempts, 2.9 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. I really like Genther, Cooley, and Peterka here. They're one of my favorite road lines on the board here tonight. if I swear to God, if Logan Mailloux was still scratched, I would say I'm not playing Utah at all, just because he's in and because of how many power plays Utah is drawing. I do have some interest in Guenther, Cooling, Peterka here tonight.
Seattle Kraken with a 2.3 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.2. Winnipeg going Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Niederreiter, Tays, Nyquist, Iafallo, Nemestikov, Lambert. Seattle going, bunch of guys in a bunch of places. The problem is, right, because Winnipeg doesn't send it. I mean, now that everyone's hurt, you would assume Scheifele, Connor, Velarde go out against top comp, but who do they even treat as top comp? And who's even going to see the bottom six of Winnipeg? It's I don't want to play a Chandler Stevenson line. Don't really want to play, I guess a one-off Yanni Newman is fine or something. I just don't have a ton of interest in Seattle here. I guess it would be Beniers, Eberle, Catton at 11K. That's probably where I go. 2.3 road total. They have a 2.3 road total knowing Winnipeg can't stop a nosebleed after the Morrissey pairing. So I'm pretty much out on Seattle here. And on the Winnipeg side, it would be the top line or bust. They're 21,200 though. That's pretty expensive. It is the second highest. Is the second most expensive line on the night behind Colorado 1, which we'll talk about in a second. As a play, I think they're fine. It's just I don't think I want to spend 21,200 on this slate for a line going up against Joey Decord. Now, if it's not Decord and they're starting Matt Murray or Philip Grubauer, that would obviously change the conversation. I still wouldn't love spending that total. But, it's just Winnipeg one for me. Seattle, I'm pretty much out on. If it's anything, it's the Beniers line.
Yeah, I was just double checking after we got on the air. Mason Marchment was at morning skate today. If he comes back in, I imagine he just goes back to that second line with Shane Wright. A Wright Marchment two-man would be something I would have interest in. This game does lock at 8 p.m. Eastern. But there are 6 games at that point. So, if you want to build with Wright and Marchment, Wright's 3,800, Marchment's 4,700. So, if you want to build an $8,500 two-man, you're talking we mentioned the Winnipeg defense pairs with Morrissey and DeMello off the ice. Winnipeg Jets are at 25% expected goal share. It's getting worse. I think last time I checked, it was at 32%. It's getting worse. So, one line that I'm pretty sure won't see a lot of Morrissey and DeMello would be Wright, Marchment, and X, whether it's Newman, whether it's Ryan Winterton, whomever. Sending out a two-man against that depth, that horrific depth for Winnipeg, I think makes some sense here. It's the only thing I have interest in from the Seattle side. And then on the Winnipeg side, it's top line or bust. Just depends if you want to spend over 20K on that top line here. For me, I'd probably just pay up a little bit and go play Colorado, or pay down a little bit and go play Edmonton. They're kind of in no man's land for me. So honestly, just not a whole lot of interest in this game, generally speaking. If anything, I honestly think a Wright Marchment two-man is the only thing that I have interest in. They actually have decent numbers together this season, or at least Marchment does whenever he's not playing with Chandler Stevenson. So that's where I would go, but just not a lot of interest here.
Los Angeles Kings with a 2.6 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3 total. Dallas failed as chalk the other night. They are going Rantanen, Hintz, Steele, Robertson, Johnston, Bork. Kings, they had optional this morning, so they didn't have rushes. What they started at last game was Kuzmenko, Laferriere, Kempe, Fiala, Byfield, Armia, and then Fogle, Deneau, and Moore. They could load up Byfield, Fiala, Kempe again. They could put Laferriere with Byfield and Fiala and put Deneau up there. I just don't know what they're going to do. In the top stacks, we have Kempe, Kuzmenko, Laferriere. We have the lines that they started at last game. It's a tough matchup anyway. The only Kings line I would have interest in would be if they loaded Fiala, Byfield, and Kempe, or even Byfield, Fiala, and LaFerriere. But other than that, like I'm not super interested in stacking the Kings here. The Dallas side, at least, is a little bit more interesting. It would be Robertson, Johnson, and Bork for me at 15.8 and 5.3%. 5.3% is a lot more manageable than almost 20 or a little over 20%. It's like I know we give the Kings a lot of crap for, Cody Ceci, but now that he's with Mikey Anderson, at least like they're average. It's not like Ceci Dumoulin just getting absolutely pinned in their zone for 3.5 minutes every time they step on the ice. So it would be Robertson, Johnson, Bork for me. If you want to go to Hintz and Rantanen, that's fine. I'd stick to that pair. Like Bork, I think you can put in because at least he'll play like 13 minutes. Sam Steele could be down on the third line pretty quick and Sagan moves up or something. So it would be Johnson, Robertson for me.
Yeah, I'm out on the Kings.
Yep.
Just really no interest. On the Dallas side, it's kind of funny that I don't think Sam Steele started with Rantanen and Hintz in the last game, and then they moved him to that line during the game, which it's kind of the inverse of what they did basically every game up to that point, where he would start on the top line and then get moved off after the first period or something. Jason Robertson and Wyatt Johnston, 3.7 expected goals per 60 so far this season, both playing between 19.5 and 20.5 minutes. I agree with you. Like Bork will at least get some ice time, if only because they don't have anybody else they can play. Like Colin Blackwell, Adam Ernie, Nathan Bastian, like these guys aren't going to be playing more, so at least he'll get some ice time. They're more likely to run into that Cody Ceci pairing, and like even with Anderson, it's like they're still not good. It's anyways. And you do get a couple guys on that top power play unit for Dallas, and that Dallas top power play unit, 144 shot attempts and 12 goals per 60 minutes so far this season. Meanwhile, the Kings, 4.3 times shorthanded per game so far this season. It's the third most in the NHL. And it's not like their PK itself has been great, basically like middle of the road by shots and expected goals against. So this is an average penalty kill in terms of what happens on the ice, and they're taking a boatload of penalties. If you're looking in that mid price range, I think Robertson, Johnson, like if you want to go Rantanen, Hintz, and Steele, like perfectly fine. If you want to take off Bork and put on one of Rantanen and Hintz and make it more of a power play stack, I think that's perfectly fine as well. Like I really don't think a whole lot of the Los Angeles Kings. I do think Dallas, I've said it before, our big concern was that their top guys wouldn't get a lot of ice time. Well, with the injuries that they had and they had to trade Marchment and all that stuff, they basically only have like 5 forwards that they trust. Those guys are going to be playing 19 to 22 minutes. So Robertson, Johnston, Bork, for me, I do think either of the top Dallas lines are my targets in general in this game. I have no interest in Los Angeles.
Yep. Carolina Hurricanes with a 2.8 total. Heading into Colorado, the Avs have a 3.2. Feels like the Hurricanes have been on this road trip for years. Almost coming to an end. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchis, Lehkonen, Nelson, Nichushkin, Landeskog. Carolina going Jarvis, Aho, Ehlers, Nelson, Stankov, and Blake Hall. Then the Stahl line, and Svechnikov still down on the fourth. Listen, like Colorado 1's 22,700. Carolina 1 is 20,100. They're kind of going to X each other out here, I think, to a degree. Even if they don't, like that price is just like, it's just, I don't want to say unplayable, but it's not attractive to just run out and jam Colorado 1 in here. Like stacking against Carolina is not ideal. Stacking a $20,000 line on the road in Colorado, also not ideal. So like if I had to play one, it would be Colorado 1, but again, like 22,700, really expensive, and it's not a good power play matchup. Carolina has one of the best penalty kills in the league, so it doesn't even make sense to add in Olofsson and take off Lehkonen to save whatever. So like if you get to Colorado and MME, that's fine. I'm probably out on them in single entry. Also out on Carolina 1 in single entry at 20,100. It's not a great matchup. they've been generating a ton still, like almost like not as much as McKinnon and Netchus, but like they're close. For me, the only line I have interest in this game is Stankov and Blake Hall, and to a degree, the Stahl line, just because they're 8,500 and they play decent minutes. And with Carrier there, they generate pretty well. So if I see the boom lives on narrative street. Like there's a lot of narrative in this game, I guess, for Netchus and Burns, I guess. But Carolina 2 would be the only line I would consider in this game in 1 to 3 max. The other stuff is MMA.
Yeah. Here's the thing is like, Kel Surprise, Carolina's penalty kill is really good again. It's been the case for like 7 years. Colorado's power play is not. 91 shot attempts, 5.6 expected goals per 60 for Colorado's top power play unit. So not only is it a bad matchup, their power play's not been good. And I think that's why you're seeing Victor Olofsson up there, is because they're starting to panic a little bit that they have all this talent and nothing's working. So I'm not even sure that the power play unit's going to, like, if they go 0 for 2, maybe do they move Landeskog up or something like that? Like, I do think you'll see some changes again. So, like, you're asking me to pay $22,700 for a line that's in a very bad power play matchup. Like, that just seems like an easy pass for me. So, like, Nelson, Nichushkin, and Landeskog is probably where my interest would be on the Colorado side. 79 shot attempts, 2.6 expected goals. Landeskog's not shooting very much, though, under 10 shot attempts per 60 individually. So, like, maybe a Nelson Nichushkin 2-man or something like that. But, like, that's just kind of the problem is, like, on the second line, Landeskog's not shooting. On the top line, it's a terrible power play matchup. So, like, this is a very good Colorado team. I just don't think this is necessarily the time to play them. You know what I mean? So I guess by default, my interest would be on the Carolina side, 20,100 for that Carolina top line. But, as good as the Carolina penalty kill has been, Colorado's has been very good as well. Third fewest expected goals against per 60 on the PK, fourth fewest shot attempts against per 60, sixth or seventh by goals against. I think it's seventh. So, like, they have a very, very good penalty kill as well. A 5-on-5, I think that's where Colorado can be had. So, like, I don't mind that Carolina top line of Ehlers, Aho, Jarvis. I think it'd be more MME for me. I agree with you. It'd be the second line of Stankoven, Blake, and Taylor Hall. 82 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals for that line. Blake is over 18 shot attempts per 60 individually. He is still on the top power play unit, so you get something there. It feels weird to say, like, these could end up being like 2 top 5 scoring teams in the league by the end of the season, and I just really don't have a lot of interest in this matchup.
Yeah, me either. It's not like we both say that, and it's going to look like a Colorado-Winnipeg game from the first round a few years ago.
I mean, this could be like a 7-5 game. Like, that's the one thing that's giving me a little bit of pause is, like, these are the 2 highest paced teams in the league. So if they decide, screw it, we're not playing defense, we're just going to run and gun all game, this could be an 8-6 game. That's the one thing that is really worrying me.
Yeah. Montreal, 2.5 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 3.5. Montreal won last night on, well, first of all, that Demidov play in overtime was disgusting. But Jakub Dobish, really great start to the season. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Kapanen, Newhook, Gallagher, Evans, Anderson.
Doc is back in tonight. They said he's in. Joshua Roy's out. I don't know because Doc, Gallagher, Bolduc was a line. I imagine they just go right back to it, but we won't have confirmation on that until warmups.
Yeah, so Doc, Bolduc. Yeah, so it might be like Demidov. I don't know.
No, Demidov, Kapanen, and Newhook would stay together. Yeah. They would just take Bolduc off the fourth line.
So Jake Evans would be the fourth line.
Yeah, Jake Evans, Josh Anderson, and then, Joe Veleno or something would be the fourth line.
That's interesting. That helps a lot. But what that doesn't help is Montreal won's 20,500. And now with Kirby Dach back, like, their minutes are going to come down. I don't know how much, but again, like, they're back-to-back on the road. They're over 20,000 and they're in Edmonton. You could say whatever you want about here come the Oilers and this and that. They have a very good penalty kill. They're a good defensive team. They just got Wallman back. Their issues have been in net. Skinner has been decent since that really rough first game of the season. I just can't play Montreal 1 here tonight at 20,500, especially when you're going to give me a McDavid Draisaitl line for $300 less. I know Matt Savoie is there, but as soon as he got moved up there the other night, he scored. They're just trying to get McDavid and Draisaitl going. Like, I don't know what their issues have been, whether it's lack of Zach Hyman or what, but I've gotten off to a slow start this season. But at 3.6%, I'm going back to them. Like, yeah, I still think Montembeault is an excellent goalie. He hasn't been great to start the season. If you're going to give me a McDavid line under 5% on a 12-game slate, it's going to raise the eyebrows. So that's really the only line I have interest in this game. I would say I'd have interest in a dock line. We just don't know the lines until too late, I think. So it would just be Edmonton 1 for me.
Yeah, the thing with Montreal is like 20,500 is just, it's an absurd price. I'll just pay the extra $700, go play Winnipeg. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of the way it is. Like, if I'm paying over 20K for a line, like if you don't want to play Edmonton and you want to play a 20K line, just pay the extra $700 to go play Winnipeg. So out on Montreal 1, like, I agree. Like, I do think there's something to playing that Montreal second line. Like, I really do think it's going to be Bolduc. They're going to go back to that Bolduc Gallagher dock line. That line had been good to start the season. They did have 52% shot share, 66 shot attempts per 60 in their limited minutes together. I do think they can take advantage of Edmonton's depth. But like you said, the Oilers have been really good defensively. 5-on-5, they're top 5 or top 6, basically across the board. Expected goals against, shots against, goals against, everything. So then you're relying on the power play, and it's like, do I want to pay over 20K just for a team that might be in an okay power play spot that's back to back on the road? It's a pass. So Doc Gallagher, Bolduc would be the only line I really have interest in. Like, if you want to go and one-off Gallagher or Newhook or something like that, I think it's okay. But it's an Edmonton game. Here's the thing with Matt Savoie. I was looking this up earlier. Of all the forwards with a league average shot rate at 5-on-5, he requires like the 6th fewest shots for every expected goal created, which means he's creating a lot of quality on his shots to start the season. He's up in like Anders Lee territory, like Anders Lee, Justin Brazeau territory. And he gets to do that now playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And, you know, Montreal is back-to-back on the road. Montembeault hasn't been good to start. I do think Edmonton 1 just makes a lot of sense here. At 20,200, they do have, the 5th highest top 2 stack with low single-digit ownership. I think this game is I don't have any interest in the Edmonton depth. Like I said, I don't think Mangiapane or Reinhart, Nugent Hopkins, or any of those guys are the players that they were 3 or 4 years ago. To me, it's Edmonton 1 or bust. I will say Edmonton's been pretty slow pace at 5-on-5, which is kind of hard to believe. Somebody said the other day, like, they wonder if Edmonton's just basically going to sleepwalk through the regular season and save as much as they can for the playoffs. I know teams do that. Florida did that a little bit last year. The Chicago Blackhawks, like 10 years ago when they were in their heyday, certainly did that. Like, they basically didn't give a shit about it at a hockey game until like March rolled around. I do worry about that to some extent with Edmonton. Like, for them, it's Stanley Cup or bust, truly. But this is still a pretty good matchup for them. So of all the lines over 20K, I think it's Edmonton 1 I have the most interest in here tonight. It's the only line I really have interest in this game.
Yep, agreed. Let's talk about defensemen here. Guys 6K and up are Mo Seider, Josh Morrissey, Victor Hedman, Adam Fox, Roman Josi, Evan Bouchard, Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar. That's from 6K up, not 7.6K down. Makar is 7,600, top of the board there. I think the guys I have the most interest here are Adam Fox and Victor Hedman. I think Evan Bouchard makes some sense. I think Quinn Hughes and Makar are fine. It's just, I think Fox, elite power play spot. Hedman, elite power play spot. You're saving money there. They'll still play well over 20 minutes. I think Bouchard's in a good spot as well. Montreal's, penalty kills better, but, they still take a fair share of penalties. So I think if I was spending up, it'd be for Fox or Hedman.
Yeah. If you look at stochastic projections here tonight, Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar at the top, but they're also over $1,000. They're like $1,000 plus more expensive. So the better point per dollar value is Adam Fox. And I mentioned on the last show about how Fox has been shooting the puck a lot more. His shot attempts so far this season is like 30% higher than it was last year. And remember what I said earlier in the show, shot attempts are down in the league, and he individually is shooting a lot more. One of the reasons why he wasn't always a great DFS play was because he lacked shot volume. That has definitely not been a problem so far this season. So yeah, Fox at the top of the board. Then Victor Hedman. I would rather play Fox personally, but I do think, if you want to avoid playing Fox here tonight, you can just go to Hedman. Fox is going to be like 15% ownership. I don't really care on a slate this big. And then Cale Makar for me, just because I do think Colorado and Carolina is going to be a really fast-paced game. It feels like one of those games where, like, even if Makar doesn't get on the board, he'll have like 6 shots and 3 blocks, like, hopefully. So Fox, Hedman, Makar for me. The mid-price range is where I think things get a lot more interesting. Jackson Lacombe under 5K, certainly for Anaheim, still getting minutes. I mentioned the other day in our Discord, he's only figured in on like 11% of goals with him scored on the ice. Over the last 2 years, it was 50%. That's just the way the game goes sometimes. It's going to regress back towards that 50% mark. He's going to be a lot more productive moving forward. Colton Parayko, anytime he's under 5K, is always in play for me. Jake Wallman, again, did you see him dance after that overtime goal?
He's ridiculous.
I love that guy so much. Matty Schaefer, of course, from the Islanders, a little bit more expensive. Thomas Harley from Dallas, a little bit more expensive. I think they're both firmly in play. For cheaper guys, Sean Walker and Gustav Forsling are at the top of the board for defensemen under $4,000 on DK here tonight. I think Devin Taves makes some sense. Again, I do think Colorado-Carolina could be a fast-paced game. I do wonder if he pumps up some peripherals. Olin Zellweger under 4K for Anaheim. Vladislav Gavrikov. I mean, anybody playing against the San Jose Sharks is in play. Like Gavrikov is fine at his price. The Pelech Pulak double team from the Islanders. Pulak 3,300, Pelech 3,200. I think Pulak's getting more ice time, so he would be my lean. But if you don't want to pay all the way up for Schaefer in the top power play in what's not a great power play spot, I do think going down to Pulak 3,200 makes sense. For the cheaper defensemen, Sam Malinsky from Colorado, Wyatt Kaiser from Chicago, Nico Mikkola from Florida, Jalen Chatfield from Carolina, I think are the guys under 3K I would look towards.
Yep. Let's talk about those weird aliens that play in those big pads in between the pipes. It's like top of the board, Vasilevsky and Shesterkin. They're both facing the Hawks and the Sharks. Like, in cash, I think either are fine. I think, if you play them in GPPs, you really need a shutout there. Moving on down, don't mind Ottinger at 8,100. I think where it starts to get interesting in GPP, Demko at 7,900, Vejmelka at 7,600. I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth, but Dan Vladar at 7,400 is fine. He's been excellent to start this season. Maybe he just needed to go to Philly to unlock his lethal potential. But if you're spending down, I don't particularly love the options. You could take a chance on Montembeault at 72 or Decord at 7,100. I like Spencer Knight's under 7K, and normally I would be like under 7K, it's fine. But like the problem I have with stacking against Tampa is they're so efficient that like 2 goals on 17 shots or 3 goals on like 23 shots is like seems like a likely outcome. So I think I wouldn't go lower than Decord at 7,100.
Yeah. I was looking earlier. The 7 teams with the lowest shot rate in the league this year are all on the slate here tonight. Philly, San Jose, Chicago, Dallas, Winnipeg, Seattle, St. Louis. I found that a little bit interesting. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge. I don't mind Igor here tonight. I just worry it's like a 2 goals on 18 shots type thing. Whatever. He does have the highest projection on Stokastic here tonight, 14.76. Connor Hellebuck is next at 14, but again, the Jets aren't taking a lot of shots. They do allow a fair amount of shots, so I don't mind Hellebuck, honestly. I will say Scott Wedgwood as well. He's under 8K. He's facing a Carolina team that does take a lot of shots. And Colorado is a good PK, so he might not see a ton of PK shots, which would be a good thing. So if you need to save a bit of money, I think going down to Wedgwood is fine. I don't mind Cam Talbot here tonight. I imagine he gets to start after what Gibson did last night, and he's been pretty good to start this season. And Detroit does finally have a good penalty kill. That's why I didn't like playing Detroit goalies last year, was because they're giving up way too many goals on the PK. It's bad for efficiency. It's not the case so far this year. So I don't mind Cam Talbot, 7,400. Tristan Jarry is getting the start. Sorry. Don't mind Jarry from Pittsburgh. Again, Florida doesn't have a good power play, so if they can hold them at bay at 5-on-5, can't believe I'm saying that, but Jarry could be fine. So I think the 2 cheap goalies I'd look towards are Talbot and Jarry. Like Spencer Knight, I know people might be tempted to play him at 6,900. I would honestly probably find the extra couple $100 and just go play Philip Grubauer instead.
Philly Grubauer, is he starting?
Or not Grubauer, Joey Decord. God.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. I almost panicked there for a second myself. But once you repeated it back to me, it was like, oh, I really did say that. No, Joey Decord. God.
Ooh. We might be back tomorrow, depending on GPPs. If it is, it'll be a shorter show. We'll see what they look like with NBA in full swing. If not, we'll see you guys Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to go to your boys who, there's no way they lose the game tonight. I'm going with Will Cooley.
Yeah, okay, no way they lose tonight.
No, that's 100% loss. What are you talking about?
I was just going to be nice and let you know that Trey Savage just got,
named game 1 starter.
Yeah. Too bad Montreal's on this slate, and it would suck if Leon Draisaitl got a hat trick. So, Leon Draisaitl.
Okay, fair enough.
But we might see you tomorrow. We'll definitely see you on Saturday. Good luck, everybody, and we'll see you when we see you.
Good luck tonight, everyone.